Next session start in a half hour. Yes? That's a very good question. And I had one more book to give away, and you raised your hand first, so you get it. Sure. So the question was where I see languages like Python and Ruby going in web development. I actually had a very interesting conversation last night over beer, as most conversations happen. And one of the things that we were talking about is that PHP is actually very unique in that PHP was built for the web. Python is a great programming language. It's not really built for the web. You have to use something like the Django to make it work on the web. Ruby is the same way. Ruby is a great programming language. It wasn't built for the web. You have to use something like Rails. Python and Ruby, for example, don't have intrinsic the idea of like your get variables are just magically there like PHP has. We were actually discussing that there were only like 3 languages we could come up with, and if you have more later, come up and let me know, that were actually built for the web. PHP, Cold Fusion, and maybe Go. And that was it. So as far as Python and Ruby, I do see far more Python and Ruby being used. But I really think I personally see it being used more on the back end. And there's actually a lot of websites out there now. And like part of this statistic of how 80.8% of websites are running PHP, all that they can look at and know is the front end. There are so many websites being built now where the front end is PHP and the back end is a Python web service. Because Python is good at making web services. You can't fault that. You can also make them in PHP. And personally, I prefer to make them in PHP because I want all my code in one language base, and I can hire one programmer who knows one language. And he can touch everything. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah?
This is kind of a related comment that's not really a question, but when people ask me those kinds of questions, and I say, I haven't yet found anything I can't do in PHP, and if I did, I would probably strike out in a different direction. And does that sound valid to you? Like,
yeah. So
have you found things that PHP just doesn't handle?
right. And the comment/question was that when people ask him that, his response is usually that he hasn't found anything that PHP can't do. And if he did, he would then go off and use another language. This gets back to PHP being the ball of nails. There isn't anything you can't do in PHP. You can do everything in it. It doesn't mean that PHP is the best language for it. Yes, you can write a desktop app in PHP using the GTK extension for PHP. Would I recommend writing a desktop app in PHP? Probably not. I would use another language for that. And you actually can't, at least at the moment, write like an iOS app in PHP. So that one's out of the question. But the thing is with all these, I agree, PHP, when it comes to the web, can do everything. It doesn't mean it's always the best language, but it always works. And that's what I was saying, like, Python is well known for being very good for building web services. You can build them in PHP. I built 1 million of them in PHP. The backend web service to PHP Architect is written in PHP. When I did the TripAdvisor job, the backend was PHP because it worked fine for me. But there are some cases where it's not that it can't do it, but there are languages more suited towards it. So. Got time for one more if anyone has one? Yes?
We talked a little bit about how JavaScript is kind of the future in terms of the front end and interaction. How do you see accessibility play into this? So, like, I think it's great to get updates on the JSON. Screen reader might not think the same thing. Where do you see that?
Right, so the question was about with JavaScript being the future of the front end, is how accessibility plays into that. And specifically, like, his website might be fine getting a big chunk of JSON, but the screen reader doesn't. Unfortunately, a lot of the answers here are good luck. Accessibility is a major problem. It's something we all really need to be thinking about in general. Luckily, a lot of screen readers are getting much better, and that's a good thing for us. I have an old college friend who is actually blind and uses a screen reader to do everything, and I'm amazed at what he is able to do. When the web was mostly text, it was easy. He used a Braille reader and was able to just read it. Now he's trying to go to big, complicated websites, and he's using Facebook and uses it very well. Screen readers have gotten much better about that. It is still something we need to always work on, and one of the nice things is as newer versions of JavaScript coming out, as newer jQuery libraries are coming out, they are building a lot of the accessibility features in, but it's always going to be a struggle. So, all right, I think that we are, any time? Yep, we only got about 20 minutes to the next session, so thank you everyone, and I will be around all week, so feel free.